So hello, thank you for all watching today. This is great. I'm Dr. Susan Baumgaertel, and I'm delighted to share my story with you. Now, I'm used to giving lectures in front of a live audience in person, so this is new for me. But first, I want to express my thanks to Dr. Donna Coriel, who's the founder and CEO of SoMeDocs, Doctors on Social Media, for creating this platform and for working behind the scenes to promote my talk. So this is not a presentation about the latest medications or about bariatric surgery, and it's not a comparison of different weight loss diets, so keep that in mind. This talk is about a program I developed and directed called Menu for Change. So for those who are watching this live, I think about half the audience is made up of physicians, but this should be a fun talk that everyone can appreciate. So let's dive right in. First, a little bit about me. I'm from Seattle originally. I grew up in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, full of snow right now, and came back to Seattle for the rest of my life, maybe. I'm kind of reflecting on high school, and I think my favorite class was typing. Now, remember, this was pre-computer, personal computer era. I know my typing skills served me well. And probably my favorite class in college early on was Latin. And boy, you better believe that just paved the way for so many things, writing and of course, med school. I went to the University of Washington College of Architecture and Urban Planning and got my undergraduate degree and stayed there for the School of Medicine to become an MD and then my internal medicine residency. So that was quite a long trek. I was in full-time practice for 25 years. Through 2021, which is last year. And then I kind of stepped away from the corporate frenzy and regrouped and became creative about what I wanted to do. So I now have my own business. It's called My MD Advocate, and it's just a pleasure to help people in that venue. I'm married. I have one daughter. She's an officer in the US Navy, go Navy. And one of the things that I really am proud of is serving as president of the board of directors for a local regional nonprofit called Cancer Lifeline, very true to my heart. I should add that this picture is from almost 10 years ago. I was posing, and that stethoscope was a gift from one of my patients. It really looks like the real thing, doesn't it? So Menu for Change. The inspiration for Menu for Change came from being invited to attend a 3-day retreat in 2009. So that's a while. It was on sugar addiction, and it was organized by a worldwide philanthropist, a patient of mine. And I met researchers and physicians and psychologists, nutritionists, just really people from all aspects, both this country and other countries. And many professionals came together. There were daily lectures and seminars, there were breakout groups and kind of workshops. So it was really a fascinating process. A couple of people to highlight, Dr. Sergey Ahmed, who's a PhD from France. Fortunately, his English was better than my French. He showed in his experiments with rats that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So yeah, keep that in mind. And then Dr. Kelly Brownell, who is the chair of the first lecture from the Rood Center, and then Mark Gold, Dr. Gold from Florida. They subsequently wrote a book titled Food and Addiction. And I think that was published in 2014, which now seems like a million years ago. But they made it a point of saying food and addiction, not food addiction, because how can you be addicted to something that we need, right? We need food. So one of the more amazing experiences was meeting none other than Jack LaLanne. And oh my gosh, some of you might know he was the inventor of the Smith machine, which was used to be ubiquitous in most gyms, probably not now. And he started one of his black and white TV program episodes with kids, go get your moms, for exercise workouts. He was famous for towing those lines of ships with a rope in his mouth, and he was shackled, I think it was back and forth from Alcatraz. So quite the legend. And of course, he was famous for phrases like, if man made it, don't eat it. If it tastes good, spit it out, kind of a little radical, but he was a man of his times. And that's a picture of me at the event with him, great hugger. He was 94, I believe, at the time, and still, except for some hearing problems, still pretty sharp. And his wife, second wife, Elaine LaLanne, she was fantastic, 80 years old, going on 12. So it was really an amazing experience. I think he died 2 days later, and I'm just honored that I had met him. But, I came back from this event and I was full of ideas, how could I kind of assemble a team or look at weight management in a different way. And so this program kind of organically developed, and it took a couple of years to really kind of bring it to fruition. And I assembled professionals from different backgrounds. And of course, me, internal medicine, a physician, Western medicine trained, naturopathic doc. We had one main one and then a couple who subbed in. Registered dietitian nutritionist. We had several acupuncturists. So really it was a kind of diverse experience. And as participants came into the program, they would work one-on-one with us and have quite a lot of time to go through a lot of issues. But there are really a myriad of other program offerings, and I just kind of put several of them up there. So we had a support group. I did a walking group at a local park. We had exercise classes, including yoga, Tai Chi, and core. We had a book club. We had monthly lectures. I think we had 80 lectures. Oh my gosh. And a video library. Those lectures are all on video. We had potluck parties and, of course, recipe books that came from those potluck parties. We had grocery tours, and it really wasn't touring a grocery store. It was going to a store or maybe a farmer's market and then learning about something specific. Maybe it was different grains or a vegetable you'd never heard of before. So that was fun. We had stress management workshops, online support. I mean, really the list was endless. So it was so enriching to kind of provide these things in a way that really I couldn't do in my regular practice. And I think that's one of the things that really gave me a spark. So have you ever given an elevator speech? Yeah. So I think it's really difficult to describe a complex program with all these moving parts in just one sentence. But, this was actually the final version that appeared on the website and on program brochures. And I think it kind of condensed everything nicely. So Menu for Change is a unique blend of science-based instruction with a whole foods focus in a personalized and holistic journey toward better health and weight management. Whew, what a mouthful. So many different variables were tracked. So we kept track of a lot of data on a quarterly basis. We measured weight, we measured body mass index, waist circumference, blood pressure, glucose control, lipids, cholesterol. So we did blood work. Also, less quantifiable things were also tracked. So people's mood or their energy, their sleep quality and quantity, and physical abilities, their movement. And boy, many patients were able to reduce medications, so blood pressure or cholesterol or diabetes pills, and some even get off of them entirely. That was just mind-blowing. And no weight loss drugs were prescribed in this program. Not that I'm opposed to weight loss drugs per se, but that really wasn't the theme. So it was truly gratifying to see participants in the program lose weight. But, more importantly, especially as I reflect on this over time, it was just as gratifying to see them improve their health and their wellness, irrespective of the amount of weight lost. And that really is, I think, kind of one of the salient points of this talk. So to read my slide, Menu for Change evolved from a weight management program to a health and wellness journey with weight loss as a side effect. And this picture is from our regular walking group. So I remember that well. As an aside, I just wanted to point out something that later people might want to Google, the problem with poodle science. You don't have to copy that whole long URL, just Google problem with poodle science. It's a great YouTube video. It's kind of a graphic design video, and it really opens your eyes to the bigger picture of weight management. So check that out. So back to Menu for Change. What did the health and wellness part focus on? So what is wellness? That's the question. Well, thinking about systems, not that. We tried to break things down to 4 main areas, and often the follow-up visits only focused on 1 or 2 at a time. So I think of wellness, NESS, as looking at nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress. And actually, I want to add that I'm writing a book right now. It's called The Menopause Menu. And one chapter is devoted to weight management during menopause. And I've modified that word wellness to include one more S, and that's for social connection. So I do think that's key. So now I'm going to take you on a tour of each of these 4 core areas in this program. So first up, nutrition. Oh my gosh, if I had a dime for every time I heard someone say, I eat really healthy, exclamation mark, or just tell me what to eat, as if there's some little fabulous book that we're all holding back on, that if only if we shared with people, everyone would be svelte and perfect. So we all know it's not quite that simple, right? So look at that graphic, I just love it. So thinking about nutrition, behavior changes can be very short-lived if they're only guided by formulae and rigid methods. So don't memorize these formulas here. You can really go down the rabbit hole with analyzing nutritional needs sometimes. Not that it's not important when you think about metabolic syndrome or diabetes or heart failure or other aspects of medical care, that's really important to get down to the nitty gritty. How much sodium did you have? How many carbs are you having? What's the glycemic index? But honestly, I think it's just a little overwhelming. And we tried to break things down into kind of a different approach. So one example of nutritional considerations in this program was called the plate method. And think about half of your plate. Look at a circular plate. Half of the plate is filled with above ground veggies. A quarter is with lean protein, and a quarter of that plate is carb or complex carb. And think of a small side of healthy fats or oils. And this pic is actually from one of my own dinners. Looks yummy. It's half veggies, so there's green beans. I see Brussels sprouts, mushrooms, and some onions. I know those are below ground. There's a quarter protein, which is that baked salmon strip in the middle. There's quarter carb, that's Japanese rice with seaweed sprinkles. And the healthy oil would be extra virgin olive oil that was used to saute some of those. So I would make that again. Now, we also shared a lot of great recipes. And this one is from one of our annual potluck parties. I actually made this. It was a tasty avocado quinoa fava bean salad from Yotam Ottolenghi's recipe book called Plenty. But I did a lot of substitutions. I didn't have fava beans, so I used edamame. Instead of breakfast radish, I used radicchio, and then I used watercress instead of radish cress. So you can mix and match. And actually, you can find this recipe in the recipes blog section on my Menopause Menu website, just in case you're interested. Here's a little pic of that. You can see it off to the right, and you click more recipes. There's lots right there. So yes, we also had a Pinterest page, and this has grown really nicely over time. The name has since been changed to Menopause Menu. And even though this is just a snippet of the main page, you can see it's not just about, recipes. There's book club, there's, body acceptance, cooking for one, brain food. So it's nice to not just, a lot of us have recipe books, or we have, easy access to recipes online, but I think it can be overwhelming. And so kind of categorizing them can be helpful. Speaking of overwhelming, so remember the slide, the side of healthy fats and oils in the plate method I was talking about. So this graphic just shows you how complicated things can get. Which in retrospect really mirrors all the nutritional advice that we gave out to some degree. So gosh, think about it. This is actually a pretty cool diagram, but nutritional guidance really shouldn't be so complicated. And that was, again, a theme we kept coming back to. Yep, diet is a 4-letter word, and I bet some of you misread this slide, right? So to get away from the complexities of what to eat and how much to eat, tracking and measuring and weighing and logging, we gradually shifted the nutritional sessions to also incorporate the basic concepts of intuitive eating. And that's a self-care eating framework, which integrates instinct, emotion, and rational thought. And this honors the physical and mental health and moves away from weight stigma, which unfortunately is sometimes running rampant. It moves away from weight cycling, up, down, up, down. And then dare I talk about eating disorders, which really wasn't part of our program, but unfortunately diets can certainly feed into eating disorders. So we folded this concept into regular nutritional advice. And the list on the slide is from copied directly from the website intuitiveeating.org. And some of it seems basically simple, but when you think about rejecting the diet mentality, you're making peace with your food, you're honoring your hunger, you're respecting your fullness, you're respecting your body and your body image. That's really important. You're honoring your feelings without food, not eating your feelings. Discovering satisfaction. Oh, does it taste good? What are the flavors and the smells and the textures? And, exercising to feel good. Really, it's just about honoring your health. So I think nowadays a lot of people do this kind of organically, but sometimes it's not quite so obvious or intuitive to people who are really trying to work on weight or their wellness. And those shishito peppers, by the way, were from my garden that year. It was a bounty year. I can't believe. I think I had 3 or 4 plants. I had 400 peppers. The next year I had nothing. So that's gardening in Seattle for you. So introducing one of our program leaders, Anita Berman, who's one of the several registered dietitian nutritionists that we had. She felt that it was easy to treat a non-diet or intuitive eating approach like a diet, just by requiring rigid implementation or the adopting of rules and perfectionism around eating. So, for example, what the slide points out, on the left, a person who carefully makes sure their plate is half produce. Well, that's a diet. Whereas someone who tries to incorporate more plants into recipes, that's not a diet. That's just thinking about what feels good and what's nourishing. The second example, a person who plans to eat less at the next meal after overeating one meal to the point of discomfort. Many have done that, right? But, think about someone who notices their physical discomfort without judgment and allows themselves to eat what they like at the next meal. So getting away from the shame and the blame. And I think that is a concept that's hard to promote when someone's working on their weight, but it's really essential in terms of their wellness and their well-being. So continuing with Anita's thought process, the definition of healthy living will look different to each person depending on their medical conditions and the socioeconomic status. So we practice shaming far too often in our society around health behaviors, don't you? Yeah, don't we? A healthy person will treat their body with as much care as possible given their circumstance. A healthy person will also recognize life values that are important to them beyond physical health and will create space in their life to live in accordance with those values. So when you think about it, for some people, this may mean eating more processed foods in order to spend time on meaningful work, or eating more restaurant foods in order to foster meaningful social connections. So those are healthy choices they breed happiness. They're promoting our mental health and promoting a rich life. So food for thought. Now, I just love this elimination diet. Remember, I don't like diets. Remove anger, regret, resentment, guilt, blame, and worry. Then watch your health and life improve. Yep. Boy, that says it all. It also reminds me of a lecture Anita gave, and it was called The Compassionate Cleanse. And she gave this to her program members in 2019. The audience also included patients from my regular practice, so not in the Mini Brain Change program. And some of them came expecting to learn about a new type of cleanse, when what they really learned about was why cleanses are not needed for general good health. So a good lecture to watch. And in case you want to see it, you can find this lecture on my YouTube channel under the What's Old is New Again playlist, and it's lecture number 67. So let's now shift to the second core area the program focused on: exercise, or as I prefer the term, movement. This slide was actually made up before my original presentation with parts of these slides. It says September 2019. Wow, that was a banner month, wasn't it? But gym, hate it, love it. I don't know. I don't mind it, but I certainly don't go, and I'd far prefer being outside. So I'll leave that with you. Not everyone has the options, though. But it's amazing how many people feel that they can't exercise if they have foot or knee problems. So walking is not the only form of activity. Some people just they feel like if they can't walk, they're just going to sit on the couch. So I'd like to profile 3 excellent movement specialists who were teachers in our Mini for Change Motivational Mondays weekly exercise classes. The first on the left side with that beautiful red top is Deborah Magallanes. And she is an amazing Tai Chi Qigong instructor at the Wudang Mountain Institute. And I believe she's watching today. So hi, Deborah, you're awesome. The second is Gordon Kaplan, who is a yoga instructor by day and by day and night, a high school basketball coach. So he's pretty awesome. And I don't think I could actually do that pose. The third, Clay Fife, fantastic personal trainer, worked on core and strengthening with our group. And here he is demonstrating how to do a perfect squat. And I did learn how to do a perfect squat that day by watching him. So go team. So recall I said that I prefer the word movement over the word exercise. So I think it sounds less forgiving, more forgiving, excuse me, less punitive. And we can all do daily movement. You know, movement is more ubiquitous. So hi, Teresa. I know you're watching today and I want to profile you. This is Teresa, who's off on the left showing her medal. And she's a champion of the Menu for Change program. And for those of you in the Seattle area, you're quite familiar with our iconic Space Needle that was built in 1962 for the World's Fair. And although visitors must ride to the top in an elevator, there are open air stairs, 832 to be exact. In 2015, Teresa was one of the first to participate in the Base to Space, Seattle's most iconic climb. So this event became an annual event to raise money for charity. And it's the only time the stairs leading to the observation deck are open to the public. So otherwise they're closed. And except during the early pandemic when this event was canceled, Teresa has done this event every year. Well, she did it again, October 2nd, 2022. So congratulations, Teresa. One final comment is actually personal. So I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2000. That was a long time ago. And I've had to modify my activities over the years. So no more holding things, can't hold a ski pole, forget rackets or clubs, so no more golf. And I've had to be very careful not to overstress my feet. So the moral of the story is don't let your medical conditions slow you down. I'd like to introduce you to another leader in our program, Kira Baum, who's a naturopathic doc and EAMP, which stands for East Asian Medicine Practitioner here in Washington State, still called licensed acupuncturist pretty much all around, but really an extraordinary woman who I'm delighted to quote from this slide, says, "It is important to take the blame off the person coming in to lose weight and to recognize that we live in obesogenic times." Think about that for a second. So she goes on to say, the way of our life is structured, oftentimes doesn't allow for much movement. We wake up, drive, sit, drive, eat, sleep, and it's a vicious cycle. So when we sit, the body goes into power save mode and our metabolism slows down. After a day of sitting, we actually feel tired and we lack the motivation to move when we get home. So when you're in this cycle, starting an exercise routine feels daunting. And I know that's very true for so many people. To break the cycle, we can start by placing ourselves in environments that promote movement. So Kira says, I don't need to tell myself I need to move, I need to run, or I need to break a sweat. Just go outside for 30 to 60 minutes and movement will just naturally happen. So that really speaks to me. You can think about nature therapy and bathing in nature. So bottom line, just do your own thing. And yes, you can actually get these figurines on Amazon. Just type in Yoga Joes. I think they're pretty cute. All right, let's move on to the third program focus, which was sleep. Oh, sleep is underrated, don't you think? So when I first gave parts of this lecture to an in-person audience a few years ago, we did a survey, hands up. And how many hours of sleep did you get last night? For folks online right now, you might just type in the chat how many you got. So who got less than 6 hours last night? Who got between 6 and 7? Who got 7 to 8? Who got greater than 8? And this is very humbling. I must admit, when I gave this lecture, my hand went up when it said less than 6. And now my hand goes up over 8. So that's pretty awesome. And I've worked on it. Now, it's not just about sleep hygiene, although screen time is key. So we may have heard about blue light from screens, from TV, computer, handheld devices, and that may possibly inhibit melatonin, but some of the data is limited. Recall that melatonin doesn't make you sleep, but it's involved in our circadian rhythm, so our sleep-wake cycles. You can set your phone to night shift, which automatically shifts the colors of your display to the warmer end of the color spectrum after dark. And, you can use a Kindle to read. It's electronic ink, so you're not looking at a screen. So lots of different things. And most sleep experts would encourage people to focus first on quality and then on quantity or number of hours of sleep. So keep that in mind. And, I won't get into the research. There's a lot of current research on leptin and ghrelin, but suffice it to say that we are learning more about various substances and peptides and hormones and other factors that impact daytime cravings and satiety or feelings of fullness. So research is happening. Now, sleep routine is essential, and when you go to bed and how you go to bed, and so many other factors. So this is all wrapped up in the principles of good sleep hygiene. And that picture on the left is a long time ago. We just moved into our house, and that was our daughter's bedroom without a bed. And my late kitty Buttercup, and I know Teresa, that's your soul, your shining star, your spirit animal. Buttercup loved to sleep upside down backwards, and I miss her dearly. So the last part of the sleep discussion is around CBT. CBT approach is golden. For those who have persistent insomnia, there's a lot of value in working with a sleep specialist utilizing an approach referred to as cognitive behavioral therapy. And, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, is a behavioral therapy process that takes time and has many different components. So it's not a quickie survey. There are things including stimulus control, sleep restriction, sounds kind of like the opposite of what you want to do, right? Relaxation training, biofeedback, cognitive control and psychotherapy, and sleep hygiene training. So this is from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, Sleep Education. They have some really good resources online, actually. But working with a sleep specialist can be very helpful to those who struggle with certain types of insomnia that respond to CBTI. So think about it. Another great quote from Kira. When people ask me what to do for cravings, they're often surprised when I say sleep more. People who are underslept tend to consume more calories in the evenings and report more cravings for comfort foods. That's really true. All right. The fourth area was stress. Yeah. So we are great at putting time and energy and caring and money into our spouse, our kids, our parents, our siblings, our boss, our coworkers, our community, our companies, our neighborhood, and everything else. Yet we don't often prioritize our own self-care. And yeah, I get stressed when I'm called a provider. I'm a physician, not a provider. So I couldn't believe I found a boat named provider. So what do you find stressful? Some people find their job is stressful. It could be a boss or supervisor, it could be their coworkers or their job duties, or just kind of how much they're doing, because everyone's working 3 jobs these days. It could be family, it could be your kids or parents or relatives. Sometimes that's extremely stressful. Financial worries, holy cow, that's just kind of rampant in this era. Don't even get me talking about politics. So politics can send you off the roof. And but remember that good things can be perceived as stressful too, right? So, birth of a baby or a wedding or a wonderful trip to Europe, stress doesn't have to be bad, but it certainly impacts us. And most of you have seen this meme before. So my cat Buttercup's favorite activity was yawning, and I just really love that big yawn. So you wouldn't let this happen to your phone, right? Don't let it happen to you either. Self-care is a priority, not a luxury. Therapy is another way to help manage stress. Absolutely wonderful. And so many people already work with therapists and they kind of drift away. Time to regroup. So one of our program speakers, actually, Erin Merrihew, is a communication, empowerment, and personal healing coach. And she writes about how to nurture your emotional well-being and, get to know your needs. How am I feeling? What am I needing? Simply acknowledging what they are can have a profoundly positive impact on your emotional well-being. Set healthy boundaries. Learn to sense the difference between your yes and your no, and practice honoring it. So start embracing what you need to say no to so you can give more of your energy to the things you have a true yes for. And then practice vulnerability. Vulnerability, I think, and she thinks, is the cornerstone of emotional health. The more vulnerable you are, the more authentic and connected you will feel. So I'd like to share what I call my 10-minute oasis. It's an exercise to help cope with stress that anyone can do. And the first step is in the middle of your busy day, not at the end of your day. Take 10 minutes for yourself. 10 minutes. Stop whatever you're doing. Don't look at a computer. Don't look at your phone. Don't respond to emails or calls. Silence everything. Maybe get a cup of tea or put your feet up and gaze out of a window at the clouds, or close your eyes and look at nothing. Or maybe there's a tree to look at, or you don't have a window. Maybe you have an indoor plant or some pretty picture. And just lounge in the moment. Try to clear your mind. Don't think of the next 5 things you have to do after your 10-minute break is over. Just exist. And if you're in an office, close the door. You do it for an important phone call, right? So why not do it for yourself? If you're home alone, all the better. Turn off the TV, don't answer the phone, don't answer the doorbell anyway. Silence your phone, ignore the next text. If you live with others, just tell them ahead of time what you're doing so you don't want to be disturbed. If you have a baby at home, it may not be so convenient, but if they're a good napper, maybe you can try this when the little one's napping. So you'll be amazed at how refreshing just taking 10 minutes away from all your daily duties can be. And, just 10 minutes. Everyone can do that. We typically think, I just don't have time for blank exercise or meditation or cooking or having fun. In just 10 minutes, you can reclaim some sanity. You can focus on inward body signals. Am I hungry? Am I tired? And maybe change your posture and calm your senses. So I highly recommend this. Unless you're driving, you got to pull over first. So the Many for Change program focused a lot on wellness, nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress. And as the 7-year program came to an end, there were some pearls of wisdom to be found. Stop measuring, start acknowledging. And I think that's a good way to look at food and nutrition in general. We put time and energy into everything else, but we often don't prioritize ourselves. That's true. Everyone's journey is unique, so do not compare yourself to your neighbor. Or if you're at the gym and somebody's pounding it on the treadmill, don't compare yourself. Our journey is unique. Redefine failure and success. So what some people may think is a failure, like that little cute cartoon, can actually be a success. So maybe those are words just to kind of banish. Change is hard. and changes that are not urgent are hard to sustain. So we, in our 24/7 culture, we respond to urgent things that have to be done right now or yesterday. But, real change can be hard to do because it's not rapid fire. And don't forget, joy and kindness are so important. So it's fitting to work in one more quote from Kira. She says, what I've realized in working with many for change over the years is that the most important element of taking on any change is to have the right outlook. More specifically, it is to be growth-minded and to look at a setback and slide back as an opportunity to learn, grow, and improve. I love that. So fast forward to the present day. That was then, this is now. Just last week, actually, I read an interesting opinion piece in the New York Times. It was entitled, Scientists Don't Agree on What Causes Obesity, but They Know What Doesn't. That was very intriguing. And one of the paragraphs said, obesity has been described by the World Health Organization as the largest health threat facing mankind. Obesity is manifestly an issue of energy balance, yet there is surprisingly little consensus about why such energy imbalance develops. So apparently world experts were meeting in London at the Royal Society's Science Academy to debate and give presentations on the plethora of ideas about the mechanisms underlying obesity. So nutritional biologists were talking about carbs and fat diluting the need for protein in our bodies and driving us to eat more calories. And then there were endocrinologists who were talking about the scientific model and eating excess carbs promotes fat. There were evolutionary anthropologists reminding us about the lean hunter-gatherers who ate lots of carbs, by the way. And then physiologists talking about ultra-processed diets versus whole foods diets. There were biochemists talking about toxic substances in ultra-processed foods. And even an ethologist, I didn't know what an ethologist was, but I think you could imagine what an ethologist is, talking about food insecurity connected to obesity, and that is a modern topic. So, the article fizzled, I think, into vague mentions of genetics and chronic illness and medications and surgery and the politics of climate change and social environmental changes. But, that last sentence I put up on the slide really kind of rings out to me. No unifying theory for the rise in global obesity. In other words, this huge conference with all these world experts could not agree that there is one thing that is contributing. Well, I kind of apply that to weight loss. The same thing can be said about weight loss. There is no singular approach, right? So I've thought a lot about my journey running the Minute for Change program for 7 years. I know how much it impacted the health and wellness of many participants. And I really remain humbled by witnessing numerous success stories. And that is so gratifying. I ended the program not because it wasn't working, but because of changes in the corporate structure where I worked. So it was time. But 3 years and one pandemic later, I think the S's really rise to the top, not just because my name begins with an S, but stress and sleep are king and queen. Self-care is essential. Social connection, joy, and kindness are even more important. And remember, weight loss should be a side effect of a bigger health journey. So stay tuned for some of that in my book, The Menopause Menu. I want to thank you for coming along on this journey with me. You can find my professional website at mymdadvocate.com. And my free informational and blog website is at menopausemenu.com. And under the information section, there are like 16 different sections, so go for it. I have a blog, YouTube channel, holy cow, my handle is at dr.susanbaumgaertel, so that's fun. And of course, SoMeDocs, doctorsandsocialmedia.com, has a growing platform of my offerings, which include my newest Netflix style series called Navigating Your Health, an 8-episode series, which has been so much fun to create. And I'm halfway through, so episode 5 is coming at you pretty soon. So thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm delighted for our Q&A session coming up.